The closing arguments are officially done. The prosecution has made their case, the defense has made their case, and now it is up to the jury to determine the fate of Daniel Penny, who is currently facing manslaughter charges and criminally negligent homicide charges. And to be clear, beyond this individual case, this will be a representative case on whether or not the Black Lives Matter effect is finally over in this nation, because if in the borough of Manhattan, somewhere that voted overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris, somewhere that voted in woke district attorney Alvin Bragg decides that they're going to vote not guilty on this very political prosecution of Daniel Penny, that will be a sign that people in one of the most liberal places in the entire country are sick of these criminals. Now, I'm going to break this down, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticeword.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Defense attorneys told the jury this was not a chokehold death, calling the charges against Daniel Penny a rush to judgment by the Manhattan DA's office, arguing media attention and protesters demanding an arrest seemed to be the motivation behind it. And they alleged it was the motivation behind the medical examiner's office issuing the cause of death, compression of the neck, chokehold, without having the results back from various testing like toxicology, anthropology, and histology.
So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this case, let me break down the parameters of it so you can understand how we got here. So first and foremost, we have Jordan Neely. Jordan Neely is the alleged victim in this case. He is the person who died shortly after being restrained by Daniel Penny after reportedly he was threatening people on the train. Now, we will get into that in just a moment, but I think it's important for you to understand the history of Jordan Neely, because the mainstream media portrays him as this innocent baby angel Michael Jackson impersonator that was beloved by the city of New York. But the fact of the matter is, most of those videos are 10 years old, and Jordan Neely was anything but beloved by the city of New York. He was a repeat offender with 42 arrests. Sure, many of them were drug-related, but he also assaulted an elderly woman by punching her in the face, and in his greatest Michael Jackson impersonation, he attempted to kidnap a child, among many other violent arrests. Now, in addition to that, Neely was known to be mentally ill. He, in fact, was on a list of somebody who needs treatment, and considering he already presented himself as a danger to multiple people in his various attacks, he should have never been on the streets in the first place. So, of course, because of bail reform, he was released over and over and over again, and eventually he wandered into a train and terrified passengers, some of them who have been lifelong New Yorkers, who described this as the most fear they've ever felt on a train in 50 years.
The whole train was freaked out. He was either going to pull a gun and knife or said, I'm willing to die, I'm willing to die.
On cross-examination of the prosecution's witnesses, the defense played police-sworn body camera video of their statements to responding officers about what happened when 30-year-old Jordan Neely entered an F train on May 1st, 2023.
He's scared the living daylights out of him.
That witness told the jury she's been riding the subway for over 50 years and has been threatened before, but this was the first time she said she was actually scared. She described Neely as resisting when Marine veteran Daniel Penny put Neely in a chokehold to restrain him.
Not a hard chokehold, just enough to secure him and the guy thought.
She testified she left to go to the conductor and then also pressed an intercom button in the station to see when police might arrive because it had been a while. She also said she went over to thank Penny after.
Now, multiple witnesses described themselves being in fear for their lives, said that Jordan Neely was threatening them, said that he was willing to go to prison. And this, of course, led to Daniel Penny, a former Marine who was on his way to school and was going to go to the gym after school, deciding to intervene on behalf of the other passengers. He took down Jordan Neely in a hold that he described in a police interrogation before he knew that Jordan Neely had passed away, because the police were withholding this information, as a non-pressure hold where he did not apply pressure to his neck.
Some guy came in, he's like, whipped his jacket off, and he's like, I'm gonna kill everybody, I can go to prison forever, I don't care, I don't do this. At that point, I looked to the person next to me like, hey, just hang on to this phone for me. I had my headphones in and took it off, and just kind of like grabbed him from behind, because he came in just to like, because he was acting like a lunatic, like a crazy person.
Now, of course, we know that Jordan Neely ultimately ended up dying on that day, and of course, Alvin Bragg decided that he was going to pursue charges against Daniel Penny because he wanted revenge for the Bernie Goetz case, and the image of Jordan Neely being held by a white man, an innocent Beba Angel black person, who of course was threatening all these people on the train and had a long criminal history, was something that he couldn't stomach. Obviously, this white person had to fry for this crime, and the reason I'm emphasizing race is because, make no mistake about it, race is the key component in why Daniel Penny is facing prosecution, while the other passengers that you almost never hear about that assisted Penny in restraining Jordan Neely aren't facing prosecution. So we have, in contrast to Daniel Penny, who of course turned himself in immediately, was arrested, was charged seriously. Alvin Bragg actually demanded a bail for Daniel Penny. He had to raise money in order to have his defense with Eric Gonzalez. Now, Eric Gonzalez is a father. He saw the danger that Neely presented, and he decided to assist in the restraint. Now, according to the law, if this chokehold was unwarranted, if this restraint went too far, as the prosecution's office is arguing, then the man who held down Neely's arms in order to prevent him from getting out of said chokehold should also be responsible for this crime and should face the same charges. Again, just think about it like this. If somebody stabs you to death, then they would be considered a murderer. But if somebody comes up behind you, holds your arms back so you can get stabbed to death, they would also be charged with that murder. But in this case, that did not happen, despite the fact that Eric Gonzalez went into hiding for a week, and when he was eventually approached by the police, he actually lied to the police about his story, claiming that he saw Neely hit someone, which, by the way, Daniel Penny did not do. He was honest and upfront from the jump, and his reward was manslaughter charges and criminally negligent homicide charges. By contrast, Eric Gonzalez, who, by the way, to be clear, I don't want prosecuted for this crime, was given immunity so that he could testify in this case.
First to testify Tuesday morning, telling the court that he went into hiding when he found out Neely had died and that Penny had been indicted for involuntary manslaughter. The Bronx resident explaining that he did not see what led to the commotion but jumped in and tried to help, telling Penny at the time, "I'm going to grab his hand so you can let go, but at some point Jordan Neely's body went limp and I let go." That's when Gonzalez said he tried to wake Neely and check for a pulse before leaving the scene to go to work. Gonzalez telling the court how Neely tried to break free from the chokehold, seen here tapping the leg of a bystander, asking him to tell Penny to let him go.
Now, clearly and obviously, this makes no sense in terms of legal analysis, in terms of what should have been done if you intend on applying the law equally. However, back in the day when the Penny video actually dropped, I predicted this very outcome before the charges were even filed against Daniel Penny. So I do believe that this Marine was justified in the restraint. However, I think he's going to face criminal charges because Alvin Bragg is going to pursue those criminal charges. Now, it's going to be interesting because you have other people who participated in the restraint if they face criminal charges. Because if you remember, in the George Floyd case, it was not just Derek Chauvin who ended up being convicted, but the officers that assisted in the restraint and Tao, the officer who was doing crowd control, were also convicted. But I'm guessing because Alvin Bragg is much bolder and much more racist than even the district attorney in Minneapolis or Keith Ellison, who is the attorney general, that we're going to just get a one-to-one prosecution of the white former Marine, and any other people who assisted in the restraint aren't going to be presented at all whatsoever. Now, by the way, it is also important for me to highlight that not only should Jordan Neely have been removed from the streets due to his previous criminal actions and his mental illness, but the family to come out now and talk about how he should have been given help when they basically abandoned this guy because they want to know part of him, because part of the criminal history actually involves offending against them, to me is the height of hypocrisy, and I find it to be disgusting.
No one on that train asked Jordan, "What's wrong? How can I help you?" He was choked to death instead. So for everybody saying, "I've been on the train and I've been afraid before, and I can't tell you what I would have done in that situation," I'm going to tell you. Ask how you can help. Please. Don't attack. Don't choke. Don't kill. Don't take someone's life. Don't take someone's loved one from them because they're in a bad place. No one on that train said, you started out by saying, I'm hungry. I need food. I'm done with it. I don't know where to get food. I don't care if I die. I don't care if I go to jail. I'm just done. No one said, here you are, sir. Let me meet your need or help you in a situation or give a word of encouragement. That's not what happened on that train.
Now, look, I understand that they're probably planning a lawsuit, but come on, you guys didn't help Neely because he was a problem during his lifetime, but as soon as he dies, all of a sudden, you want to come out and show out and say that you cared so hard about him when your actions betray your words. Now, in addition to that, we also have the testimony from the medical examiner, who, on its surface, seems like it's perfectly fine and would indicate that Daniel Penny is responsible for the death of Jordan Neely, as portrayed by many a local news segment where she says the cause of death is asphyxiation or suffocation.
Dr. Cynthia Harris ruled Jordan Neely's cause of death compression of the neck or asphyxia. Prosecutors say Daniel Penny had Neely in a chokehold for nearly 6 minutes. In a voluntary police station house interview, Penny demonstrated.
And I kind of came like this.
Okay. Did you apply pressure, Daniel?
No, I just wanted to keep him from getting to people.
After Penny let go of Neely, several witnesses, including responding officers, testified Neely had a pulse. Dr. Harris says that's not surprising. This is an asphyxial death. The brain dies first. Neely had sickle cell trait. She testified it's normally benign, an asymptomatic condition, but his spleen and red blood cells were sickled. In her medical opinion, she testified it was caused because he was in a low oxygen situation.
Now again, even though that seems pretty straightforward, one of the problems that I have, and you should have with this particular medical examiner's testimony, is that the original report that she produced related to Jordan Neely's death actually had cause of death pending as the result, and this is because she was waiting for the toxicology screen to determine whether or not Jordan Neely had lethal amounts of drugs in his system, because with the body alone, she was unable to determine cause of death. But she says that she ended up revising that report before the toxicology report ended up coming in because she watched the videotape and said, based on the videotape, this is clearly and obviously a death because of the chokehold. And I will just ask you guys this question. If you hire a medical examiner to determine cause of death by examining the body, do you not expect them to base their cause of death determination on examining the body and not on looking at a video of a case that was becoming a political firestorm? This is why, in my previous video, I assert that the medical examiner lied for political reasons. And in fact, the defense produced a medical examiner that contradicted each and every point put forward by the state's medical examiner.
A toxicology report revealed Neely had a synthetic cannabinoid, otherwise known as K2, in his system. But she told the jury no one can say how much, because current testing does not quantify it. It only determines if it's present, since synthetic cannabinoids change like fashion trends. On cross-examination, defense attorneys asked her about higher rates of toxicity and hospitalizations due to K2. She said it was 2 to 100 times more potent to standard natural occurring cannabinoids. They also noted after she performed the autopsy, Neely's death certificate originally said cause of death pending further study. Dr. Harris said that was due to a misunderstanding. A police report said Neely had been screaming, so she had questions. After viewing video of an unresponsive Neely, and though waiting for toxicology results, she made her ruling, doubling down, telling the jury that Neely could have had enough fentanyl in his system to knock down an elephant, and that still would not have changed her opinion.
In addition to that, the medical examiner stated in a court of law under oath that Jordan Neely had a synthetic cannabinoid called K2 in his system, which could be anywhere between 2 and 100 times stronger than the actual marijuana or actual cannabis. And the reason why this is crucial is because unlike its natural counterpart, these synthetic cannabinoids have dramatic effects. Obviously, they more disproportionately impact people who are already mentally ill, and it also could have been a contributing factor, bare minimum, if not the causal factor, in the death of Jordan Neely. But of course, for the public, we didn't get to hear about what was in Jordan Neely's system. That was suppressed because part of this campaign, this revenge campaign for cases like Bernie Goetz, is based on the idea that you don't get to see anything about who they've deemed to be the societal victim. You just get one image of a white man grabbing an innocent baby angel black man, and that's what you're gonna have to deal with. And by the way, throughout this case, we've seen body cam footage, like I showed showed you earlier on be suppressed. We've seen all this other stuff being obscured and hidden from the court, including the identity of Eric Gonzalez, the other person who ultimately ended up getting an immunity deal, who ultimately lied to the police when he was approached by them to talk about this particular case for fear that he would be charged. And of course, this all adds up, in my opinion, to a very politically motivated prosecution. And of course, the prosecution has even admitted that Daniel Penny was fully within his rights to take down Jordan Neely. They just decided at some arbitrary point that he went too far, and therefore he and he alone is guilty of criminality. That is the actual argument that they put forward during the trial.
Defense attorney Stephen Razor asked jurors to imagine for a moment you're on that train too, in a confined space when an erratic, threatening Jordan Neely enters. He said Penny had something the others didn't, something unique to him, his training. Danny acted to save those people, not knowing whether Neely was armed or not. The defense called the hold a simple civilian restraint, that Penny's purpose was never to render him unconscious and never to try and hurt him. Telling them, Penny told police in a voluntary station house interview he was holding Neely until police arrived. It took the NYPD more than 7 minutes to get there and 20 minutes for EMS to arrive. Razor said when the medical examiner took the stand, she testified while watching video of the incident that she couldn't say how much pressure Penny was applying. He told the jury, if the prosecution's own experts have doubt, why shouldn't you? They failed to prove their case, period. They said the death of Neely was unfortunate, tragic, but not foreseeable. Asking them, who would you want on the next train ride with you? The guy on the train with the earbuds minding his own business?
Now, to me, I actually believe that the reporting on the closing statements are absolutely crucial and indicative of what really matters in this particular case and what each side is angling for. The prosecution is obviously trying to paint Jordan Neely, this 42 times arrested, mentally ill individual who should have never been on the streets in the first place, as an innocent Bebe Angel Aladdin, and Daniel Penny as a secret evil white racist.
Prosecutors began their closing by repeating what they said during their opening, that Penny had good intentions, but the defendant used way too much force for way too long in way too reckless of a manner, that Penny could easily have restrained him without choking him to death. Telling the jury, Penny continued to hold Neely even after the train pulled into the station and passengers got off. Holding someone for police does not justify the use of deadly force, they told the jury.
And this is why they emphasized that Daniel Penny, during the police interrogation, once referred to Jordan Neely as a crackhead that he was trying to keep away from people. Again, language policing, which is what we can expect from these woke, insane individuals. While by contrast, the defense asked the jury to put themselves in that subway car, to put themselves in that isolated situation. When a man comes on the train, he starts screaming that he's going to kill someone, that he doesn't care if he goes to jail for the rest of his life, if they would want somebody like Daniel Penny to step up in that situation. And for me, that's what it's all about. Do you take the position of the progressive elitists that if somebody assaults you on the train, then it's no big deal, and honestly, your concerns for your life and your safety are just bourgeois concerns, as Emma Vigeland said related to this case?
I was hit at one point sitting on the subway by a man who was having a mental health episode. He sat next to me and he was elbowing and kind of flailing around and hit me in the face and in my body. And it was jarring, right? The idea that I would want him to be hurt in any way, I just didn't want to be near him in that moment because I understood something was going on here. Every one of us who's taken public transit has had this kind of situation, something similar happen, seeing someone struggling. That doesn't mean that our fear in that instance, and I was a little scared because I was hit.
It's a problem. Like, it's people that need help.
But my fear is not the primary object of like what we should be focusing on right now. It's the fact that this person is in pain. And so, like, the politics of dehumanization privileges the bourgeois kind of concern of people's, like, immediate discomfort in this narrow instance, as opposed to larger humanity and life. It's really freaking twisted.
Yeah,
Or do you think that it's reasonable to restrain somebody who is threatening to kill people before your very eyes, including elderly women, mothers, and children? What do you do? What do you want to happen in that situation? That's what this case is all about. But you know what? The jury's out. We're gonna find out what they rule on this particular case. The verdict, if it comes in quickly, is likely to be a guilty. If it takes a while or the longer it takes, it's likely to be a not guilty. But one of the things that will really piss me off is if we get a compromise verdict where they find him not guilty on the top charge and then tag him with the lower charge, the criminally negligent homicide. But of course, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Now, as usual, if you like this video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the Jordan Neely case. Till next time.